Hi there and welcome to the programme. My name is Richie Allen and this is David Icke Dot Connector, where every week I'll be talking to David Icke, where he'll be connecting the dots between all the various stories of the week, the week's events, the week's politics, the week's news. Without further ado, let's welcome David Icke. David.
Hi Richie, I thought, given it's the first programme, that I'd just set out the overall picture within which all these news stories are happening. Because I've been researching this now for the best part of a quarter of a century, and I've been to like 55 countries doing it over the years. And once you become known for putting this information out, you become a magnet. People say, I can now see a way to get this out into the public, so they come to me. And but putting it all together, and that, you know, over the weeks we'll be dot connecting many different things, dot connecting the nature of reality and putting that into the context of what's happening in the world. But I thought what we could do today is just put the basic structure together. And there's basically two things you need to know to understand the world in a different way. The key one is where the world is being taken. Because behind the scenes, and we'll go into this in detail over the weeks, there is a network of secret societies and semi-secret organizations, and organizations that we will know about in the public arena, but we won't know the true context in the public arena. And the structure can be likened to a spider's web. You've got the spider in the center of the web, and that's really deeply in the shadows, or deep in the rabbit hole, whichever you want to however you want to put it. And from that spider, as I will call it, the agenda for the world and the agenda for humanity comes out from across the web. So each strand in this symbolic web is a secret society, a semi-secret organization, or it is a known organization, but not in the context, like I say. So the strands immediately around the spider, they are the really exclusive secret societies. They're the ones that, some of them have no names, because if you have an organization and you don't give it a name, it's very difficult to pin it down and locate it. And the entry to that level of the spider's web is for only people who are absolutely in the know of what the game is. As you come out from that center point, out from the spider, you're going through the secret societies that are known, the Freemasons, the Knights of Malta, and the Knights Templar, etc., the Jesuits. And then you're coming out and you reach a point in the web where the hidden, as I'll call it, the hidden part of the web kind of hits the cusp where it goes into the seen world. And that point, that cusp, has organizations that are semi-secret, like the Bilderberg Group, for instance, which was held in Britain, not far from here, north of London, this year. And the Bilderberg Group is no longer secret, because although it was created officially and at its first meeting in 1954 at the Bilderberg Hotel in Holland, hence the name, what researchers and real journalists have done in the alternative media over these years is expose its existence, and it's exposed in great detail with the lists who actually has attended. And the Bilderberg Group has major politicians, major corporate heads, major bankers, and people from NATO and all the rest of it, and European Union bureaucrats. And it's a place where there is coordination of the plan to be played out in the mainstream of society, in new legislation, laws, etc., and policies in general. But the Bilderberg Group is still pretty secret in the sense that we are not allowed to know what it discussed. But it was in the hidden. Now, because of the alternative media, it's been pulled onto this cusp where the hidden meets the seen. So through this network, and in the seen, I'm talking about governments, talking about corporations, I'm talking about banks and banking networks. So the plan, the agenda for manipulating the direction of human society and human life comes from the spider in the hidden. And we'll go into detail over the weeks of what that spider really is. And it comes out through the secret organizations, the semi-secret organizations, and eventually it comes out into mainstream society in changes in laws and legislations and all the rest of it. Now, out in the scene, the vast majority of people working in government, vast majority working in corporations, vast majority working in banks, have no idea that the spider exists, never mind the web. And people say, don't they, oh, I don't know, it's, I don't know what they're doing, but it's come down from on high. And you go, well,
all the time.
Where does that on high, where does it go? Where's it coming down from? And you can liken this structure not just to a spider's web, but to a pyramid, a compartmentalized pyramid, in the sense that if you look at any organization today, whether it's a bank, a government, a university, whatever it is, and certainly you know, a secret society, they work with this compartmentalization, need to know structure. If you look at any organization today, it is very much like a pyramid, in the sense that there's the few at the top that know what that organization is really about, what its motivation is, what its agenda is. And the further you come down from that pyramid, peak, the capstone, you're meeting more and more and more and more people in the organization, but further you go down, the less and less and less they know about that. And what this structure does is it manipulates people through compartmentalized ignorance to introduce an agenda in its multifaceted forms that is enslaving them, is enslaving their children even more, and is enslaving their grandchildren even more, and yet they have no idea that that's what they're doing. Why? Because in this pyramid structure, you've got someone here working for a bank, and they've got someone here working for a corporation, someone here working for a government. Now, none of these people know the others exist, let alone their contribution, their contribution, and their contribution actually is all part of a pattern which is taking the world in a particular direction. The only people that know that are the few at the top who know how the whole thing works. And you see, one of the big things, Richie, and I do completely understand it, is that people say, how can a few control the world? It's not possible. But if you start to understand the structure, which is the thing I set out to grasp right from the start, how is it possible? I know it's happening, but how do they do it? You find that as long as you can compartmentalize information and knowledge, you can get your target population to enslave itself through ignorance of the fact that that's what it's doing. So, for instance, you've got law enforcement. The agenda says we want an Orwellian state. And then down here, not understanding that, you've got people in uniforms and dark suit administrators who are introducing that state constantly with more and more surveillance, more and more control. And they have no idea that that exists and there's an agenda behind it. They're told, oh, it's terrorism, give them any excuse, they'll believe it. Although not so much now, thank goodness. And what they're doing, these people, is enslaving their own children and grandchildren. If they realized they were doing that, they'd be horrified. But this structure means that they don't realize that. And one of the things that I've been doing over the years with the books, Dot Connecting, and the talks, is to take that and put it here so people can see actually what on high really is, if you go deep enough or in this symbolism high enough. So that's the structure that allows this to be manipulated. So the next question is, where does this structure want to take the world? And what we are looking at is an ongoing attempt that goes back at least thousands of years, and there's a reason why it's gone over the thousands of years, and again we'll get into that in detail on another program, but I want to keep to the structure today. The process has been quite simple: to constantly centralize power. in every area of our lives. Why? Because if there's great diversity of decision making, great devolved powers to make decisions that affect your community, that is a nightmare structure for a few, and compared with the global population, the people in full knowledge of what they're doing is very, very, very few, ridiculously few. But if you have that structure of devolved power, you are in a nightmare situation to centrally control everything, because how does the few keep control of all these decisions going on all these places all over the world? So the process has been the constant centralization of power. And so there was a time when we had a tribal situation in the world, and the tribes made decisions affecting the tribe. Then we had this very pivotal period where the tribes were brought together under something called nations and countries, and now a few at the center of the country, the nation, the government, is now dictating the lives of all the tribes which were independently deciding their own lives before. Then we started to move, and my goodness me, look what's happened in Europe. And we're doing it all over the world now with trade agreements and all these things. We're actually bringing the nations together in a centralized structure. And now the few at the center, for instance, of the European Union, are dictating the lives of all the countries, which were then dictating the lives of all the tribes, which at one time were deciding their own lives and their own societies, their own communities. And what this has done systematically is at every step, it has created a situation where fewer and fewer and fewer people are able to dictate the lives of more and more and more people. And it reached the point some time ago now when we had to actually had a word for it: globalization. You know, I see people going on globalization protests and all that rest of it, but certainly for a long time, and still today with many of them, they think it's about just corporations wanting more and more power over the world. The corporations are not the origin of globalization. What's the origin is the spider in the center of the web. The corporations are the vehicle for it. Governments are the vehicle for it. Politicians are the vehicle for it. Only a few actually realizing it. And so the idea, and this is a big revelation in terms of understanding the world. The idea, or the question is, where do they want to take us? And what they're looking for is a structure, a world structure, in which the few are able to control the many absolutely fiercely and in an incredibly extreme way. And this is the structure. First of all, they want a world government that would dictate all political decisions and other decisions to every country or trading group like the EU. That would the idea is the world government, and then under that you have the structure of the European Union and these other trade blocks, or actually union blocks, tyranny blocks, which are also planned in places like the United States and elsewhere in the world. And just as the European Union was evolved out of a free trade area, it's good for jobs, there's no political agenda here, so the same is going to be happening. It is happening from the free trade zone in America, NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, and other free trade areas around the world.
Not good for jobs, though.
No, they're just stalking horses, Richie, for the stepping stone, which I'll come to, the technique of the stepping stones to take us down this road. So they want a world government dictating to every country. So now basically you've got one table dictating to the world. They want a world central bank that would dictate all global finance. And they want a world army which is designed to impose the will of the world government on any country or area of the world that doesn't want to take those diktats. Also, they want a world currency which would be not cash, it would be purely electronic. And there are massive implications for freedom there, because at the moment, if you go into a shop and you hand over electronic money, like a credit card, and the machine says, no, won't accept it, well, you can still pay cash. But when cash is gone, and cash is going out of society so quickly, and you know, all these mobile phones, cashless, do it on your mobile phone. This is all part of the process, as quickly as possible, of creating the cashless society. Because if you go into a shop and you hand over electronic money, like I say, you can pay cash now. What about when the cash is gone and that computer says no to your electronic money? That computer is now dictating if you can purchase. It's dictating your life, your ability to do anything in a world dominated by money, in which money is choice.
We'll take a very quick break now. When we come back, we'll have more from David Icke. This is David Icke.Connector. Don't go anywhere. And welcome back to David Icke.Connector. David Icke connecting the dots, bringing all the stories and the news of this week together. David, welcome back.
Thanks. So,
cashless society.
Yeah, where we were was this structure which this agenda is pushing the world towards. So and once you kind of have the understanding of the structure, the world makes total sense, because you can see all these decisions being made that are pushing us in that direction. So they want a world government, a world army, a world central bank, a world currency, and they want a microchipped population connected to a global computer system, for which there are enormous implications. And of course, as you say, the cashless society and the end of cash, so the computer rules okay. So that's where they want to go. And under that, they want this structure of unions, the European Union, of course, the most advanced at the moment. And under that would not even be countries. They want just regions, because they want to de-unify any unified response to this structure of power. And the idea is to create in that structure what I call the Hunger Games society. This is a society where the less than 1% at the top, who are running the whole show, including the banking system, are so wealthy it's beyond description. And the rest of the population is in a situation of being mega poverty. And I'm including in that the people that we would call pretty well off or middle class today. They want them in that position as well. People start to make sense of what's happening economically with that. And there are two techniques that they use overwhelmingly to take us in these directions. One I have been calling for a long time, problem, reaction, solution. It's devastating, and it's played on us every day. You want to change society. In other words, you want to change society to advance this agenda of control. But you know at each point where you want to knock this agenda on, that you're going to get a lot of opposition for a lot of the things that you want to do. So you don't tell them straight, as my mother used to say. Don't tell them straight. You play problem, reaction, solution, which works like this. First of all, you create a problem. It could be a government collapse, it could be an economic collapse, it could be a terrorist attack, whatever. Whatever will give you the opportunity to change society as a result of it. You then tell the public, through an unquestioning mainstream media, the version of that problem that you want them to believe, i.e. people that couldn't fly a one-engine Cessnas suddenly manifested the ability to fly wide-body jets on 9/11 in ways that pilots that have been flying them for decades said they couldn't do. So the next point on problem, reaction, solution is the reaction. You want a reaction from the public of fear, of outrage, of intense emotion, and you want them to say, in effect, what are you going to do about it? Something must be done. And at that point, those who've created the problem and sold the villain, in whatever form it is, to the public, then say, okay, here's what we have to do as a result of this manufactured problem. And we go to the solution. And the solutions are that the agenda, whichever part of the agenda the problem relates to, will be advanced by changes in society. You look at 9/11, Richie, and you see a pivotal problem which has actually changed the face of the world in so many ways. All this surveillance, the war on terror, the invasions of countries, all justified in effect by that act.
Event.
Yeah, and if that had not have happened, manufactured problem, the world would be very different today, and this agenda would not be anything like as far ahead as it is. And the stablemate of problem, reaction, solution is what I call the totalitarian tiptoe. This is the stepping stone. You're at A and you know that you're going to Z. But if you go in big leaps, then people are going to look up from the game show, they're going to look up from the sports, and they're going to say, Ethel, what's going on? And so you don't do that. You go from A to C to D to E, and you do it in as big a leap as you think you can get away with, but not so big that where the direction is going, the pattern, the connections, the stepping stones, you don't want them to be obvious to people. Now, I spent the last 25 years nearly connecting those stepping stones and saying, hey, look where they're leading. And so if you look at the European Union, it started out as a free trade zone because after the Second World War, you had someone come out and say, right, we want the political union and the centralization of power in Europe in the European Union. And people say, hold on, mate. We've just spent the last five years fighting to stop that with the Nazis. What are you doing? So they were never going to announce what they wanted. But what they've done, totalitarian tiptoe, is they've then started moving. And they've, do you know, if only we had a bit more centralization of power, it would be much more coordinated and much more efficient on the go. And then eventually you had the Maastricht Treaty, which was a massive Rubicon in terms of the centralization of power in Europe, and even more so with the Lisbon Treaty, which basically took anything worth the name in terms of power away from nation states. All this stuff is now you know, in terms of politicians, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. Well, you will if they agree. You ain't if they don't, because that's the structure and that's the law now. So through the stepping stones, we've had all these things. Globalization has been done stepping stones, more and more centralization of power, a bit more, bit more, bit more, and bit more, and so it goes on. So that's the basic structure and the techniques of moving us forward in this agenda that people need to understand. And then you start to look at the world. And you start to see that this agenda is happening. First of all, this Hunger Games society with the less than 1% and the mega poor. The less than 1%, billions of mega poor, I see an answer here, right? So what they need to protect the less than 1% and keep this structure intact is they need a strata here of a vicious Orwellian police state, which keeps the masses under control and protects the less than 1% of the power structure. And what that level, or the police state level, is not made wealthy by the less than 1%, but it's made a bit more wealthy than the mega poor. And what they're doing is they're recruiting from the target population to keep the target population in line. And now you look around the world, Richie, you look at the TSA, the Transport Security Organization in America. You look at the way the police is becoming the military. You're looking at more and more and more laws that are destroying freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and the idea, and Orwell was quite right, is to destroy eventually the freedom of thought. And we're seeing this police state unfolding on the way to that structure. And if people think it's bad now, well, have a think, because where we are now, outrageous as it is, in terms of the destruction of freedom, freedom of expression, freedom of movement, it's nowhere near where they want to take it. And then you look at the world government. We have a de facto world government already. It goes under names like the G20 or the UN Security Council that are making decisions that are affecting the world. And a handful of countries I mean, why is Britain a permanent member of the UN Security Council? Hello? Why is France? You know, United States and all the rest of it. Well, these are the countries where this spider has, Italy too, through the Roman Church, etc. But these are some of the countries from where the spider operates most powerfully. United States, Britain for historical reasons, France too. That's why these few little islands, you know, in the sea off the European mainland, 60 million people. That's why it has a permanent place in the UN Security Council. And the spider also works massively through Israel, through the House of Rothschild, which is absolutely a part of the spider. And thus, Israel is treated differently to the rest of the world in terms of what it can do and all the rest of it, because it is an asset. I'm not saying the people of Israel, I'm saying that the governing structure of Israel is a major part of this web. And therefore, when people say, why does America, at a time of massive economic catastrophe, why is it continuing to give billions of dollars to Israel, this country of less than 8 million people? Why? Because the spider controls America and it controls Israel. So this hand of the spider hands to this end of the spider. It's very, very simple. And that's why when it comes to wars and invading countries, Britain and America are always like, you know, where do we shoot? What direction do we shoot? And so in terms of wars, what we're seeing is the unfolding world army. We have a de facto world government, as I mentioned, but we have a de facto world army. It's called NATO, and it's called the American military, because the idea is to destroy America. That's why America is being destroyed. Because if you want a world government dictatorship, which dictates to every country, you can't have superpowers that can say no to you because of their financial and military might. So America is being systematically destroyed by the spider working through the American government, which it controls, on the road to a much bigger agenda to destroy America so the world government has power over America. And so puppet presidents like the Bush and Obama, they're put in there not to serve the American people. How do these people get to power? They get to power not least through attracting vast amounts of money. The money goes from the spider corporations and banks and donors to the candidate they have selected long ago, and then he represents the spider. Doesn't matter what party it is, that's just an illusion to think we have political choice. It's the spider that dictates. So this starts to explain, if we're talking about the world army, why when America, like I say, is going through economic catastrophe, it's got a debt so large it's almost a joke. I mean, you do know it's repayable and was long down there. It's just a joke.
It's trillions, isn't it?
Yeah, well,
15,
unbelievable.
18, 20, 21 trillion, whatever it is now, yeah.
And what they're doing, just very quickly on that point, is they keep raising the debt ceiling and raising the debt ceiling because that's economic madness in you know, sensible economic terms. But the idea is to destroy America and destroy it financially. Thus, doing that is absolutely in line with agenda because you're reaching a point of economic total collapse, and that's the idea. So then you ask the question, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, why amid this economic mayhem in America is America spending trillions and trillions of dollars on the American military and wars abroad and occupation abroad? Why is it doing that? This is the answer. Because it's not the American military. It's the spider's military working through America with American borrowed money. So they win-win here. They're building the American military, which is really a de facto world army, and at the same time, and funding it through America, they're destroying America financially, which is the idea. So when you look at the world has been broken up by the American military into different comms or commands. Like there's Northcom, there's CENTCOM, there's AFRICOM. I mean, the arrogance of it, where they have different American command structures in these different parts of the world. But it's not the American military. This command structure, which is being created for the day when the World Army is created, and the World Army or the American military are fused and absorbed into the World Army. That structure's already in place. They'll just inherit it. It's the World Army structure, not the American structure, which only seems that on the face of it. And so they have to get control of those areas of the world that won't come quietly. And so we go to the Middle East. And we go to what they call Eurasia, that great landmass between Europe and China, basically, and down into the Middle East. And so through 9/11, through endless excuses, they have started the process to take over those countries. What excuse do we need in Afghanistan? Okay, how about bin Laden was behind 9/11? Yeah, that's the one, we'll have that. Yeah, sounds good, yeah. What about Iraq? Oh, God. Iraq, we can't say it was bin Laden, can we? Because he didn't like Saddam. I know, weapons of mass destruction. We'll tell them that they can hit our targets in 45 minutes and all this stuff. Oh, that's a good one, they'll buy that. Okay.
But they won't tell them that we sold them any weapons that we might have had left.
Exactly. They won't tell you. They won't tell you that put Saddam Hussein into power. So then they go Libya. Well, I tell you what we'll do. How about we fund some rebels and we train some rebels, and we'll get some rebels to start attacking government targets, Gaddafi targets. What's Gaddafi going to do? Going to shoot back. So what we'll do is, when they start the rebellion and start attacking government targets, we'll sit very quiet. Turn the microphone off, the media, they won't say a word. And then, when the government shoot back, we'll say he's killing his own people. That will work. So they went in and bombed Gaddafi out of sight and bombed Libya into the Stone Age. And then they tried to do the same in Syria, and they've not quite done it. And that's been a real block on this progress, because they thought they'd be through Syria and into other countries by now.
And this surprised even you, didn't it? I mean, it surprised you when David Cameron wasn't able to get a vote.
Well, I think it was a pivotal moment, Richie. It was a very pivotal moment, because what I saw at that time, for the first time really in any scale, is the public's perception of the possibility that actually chemical weapons had been used, not by Assad, who had everything to lose by doing so, but actually as an excuse to blame it on Assad. Problem, reaction, solution. It was a massive moment, because enough people had seen and absorbed that possibility for what the agenda was, which was to, hey, Syria's taking too long, right? Okay, I want an excuse. We need to bomb him out of power. They couldn't do it, and that was a very, very encouraging moment.
You are with David Icke, Dot Connector. We'll be back with plenty more after this short break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, David Icke, Dot Connector. We'll get straight into it, David. We were talking just before the break there about the fact that, surprisingly to some, the public revolted against the idea of going to war with Syria.
Yeah, and this is why the People's Voice is in existence, and it's why the alternative media in its existence, is to fill that massive void that the mainstream media won't fill, which is actually the backstory of world events, rather than the in-your-face, this is happening because the government says so. You see, there's something I've been talking about for years, repeaters. What society has become in terms of its official spokespeople in journalism, whether they're journalists, whether it's government officials or whatever, they're repeaters. What they do is they take the official version. This is how problem, reaction, solution works. They take the official version and they repeat it, and they call it journalism. Now, problem, reaction, solution would never work if we had real journalism. if the People's Voice version of journalism was widespread, because as soon as the government or whatever authority it is says this is what's happened and this is why it's happened, this is who's to blame, a real journalistic community would say, okay, let's have a look at this. Let's investigate this. Let's see if this version of events from the authorities actually stands up. And they'd find that it doesn't. Invariably, almost every time doesn't stand up. So instead of the official version going to the public undiluted to get the reaction of do something, okay, we'll do what we're always going to do, yeah. Instead of that, another version would go to the public through the journalists, real journalists, which is they're lying to you. This is not true. Look, here's the evidence, right? So this is another area of great importance. It's not only people in uniform that are bringing this society, this Hunger Games society, into existence by enforcing the laws that the few are deciding. It's also journalists. You know, I say to them, you know, people all over the world, journalists who are alleged to be journalists, you are, by your omission of the truth, by your lack of true journalism, you are making a fundamental contribution to the enslavement of yourself, your children, and your grandchildren. And you better start understanding that, because one day you're going to have to look your children in the eye, and when they ask you, what were you doing, Daddy and Mummy, when it was coming in? You were a journalist, weren't you? Oh, I was writing about a celebrity getting a divorce. All right, okay, all right. That's great. So this is vital. That's why the People's Voice exists. But there's another agenda here which explains a great deal, and this is a real stretch, Richie, for most people. It really is, although the documents exist to show that this is the case. There is a massive, massive agenda for a fundamental cull of the human population. From the point of view of this spider, the human population is too big and they want it smaller so it's more easily controllable. And it's not that people are just going to drop over in masses, you know, in the same moment. It's cumulative. And this is why we have genetically modified food, which is genetically modifying us. This is why we have poison in the water, like fluoride and other stuff that I'm sure is in there.
Thankfully, it's on the retreat, though, fluoride, thankfully. It looks to be anyway.
Well, well, in some parts of the world, you know, in most parts of the world it isn't, but in some part of the world it is. And this is more encouragement where this massive effort to get this information circulating has reached the point where it is starting. It is starting. Humanity is kind of starting to come out of its slumber, out of its mind-controlled state, because that's what it's been in. And it's starting to see what it couldn't see before, and therefore it is very, very, very encouraging. And this is why, or one reason why, there are others, why the atmosphere is being so irradiated. And when they're selling you something that is designed to harm you, then they have to give you a benefit. So they'll give you a mobile phone. And you can now call anybody. Oh, it's great, you can call anyone anytime. You know, and it's like, one of those again. Deep breath, take a look at it again. That is working on microwave frequencies. Your brain is here, your ear is next to it. And you're going to put a microwave technology next to your ear for endless amounts of time a day. Now, how about we get a microwave oven and you hold it to your ear, right? For like, hold it for your ear for even, 20 minutes. What do you think? Oh, no, that'd be yes. Give us a call, because that's what you're doing, right? And why would they pick one of the most dangerous parts of the electromagnetic spectrum to communicate through technology that people are putting into their ears? And that's all part of the control system as well, because anything that has smart in front of it is part of this surveillance control system. Smartphones, smart TVs, which can actually see.
We saw that this week, didn't
exactly.
we? Yeah.
That's Orwell's telescreens. Smart meters. What are smart meters doing? They are creating. People are saying, oh, now, oh, well, this Wi-Fi, it seems it's dangerous. Yeah. What is a smart meter? It is creating yet another, in effect, Wi-Fi radiation field in your home. And not only is it sending back information from your home, it's actually sending stuff the other way on in the frequency band of human brainwave activity, so that it can actually implant information into your head, which you then think is your own thoughts and your own perceptions. This is not far-fetched. You know, the thing is that when you see the world in that kind of span of possibility, because of all the stuff you've not been told, then some of these things I'm talking about out here can be fantastic. Oh, that's not possible. No, it's your perception of it not being possible. That's all it is. It actually is very possible. Not only that is happening. And so you have vaccinations. What is that doing?
We all did.
That is purely destroying the human immune system at the very time it is in the process of being formed. Okay, you're an immune system. You're just getting going. You've just been born. You just, oh God, here, let's get
Some
go.
pretty sharp moves there,
And suddenly, yeah, it is. And suddenly, boom! This tidal wave of toxin comes and smacks you. What is it now? 30-odd vaccinations before the age of 18 months.
We were supposed to get mumps, measles, and rubella. You're supposed to get them, no?
Well,
aren't babies supposed to get these things and then get rid of them naturally?
Well, that was the idea. That was kicking the immune system into development and strength. Yes, but the thing is that what vaccines are doing are destroying the immune system. The immune system will never be the same again when its very point of formation, it is hit by a tidal wave of toxins. And there's more and more excuses for it all the time. Well, we've got a vaccine for this, we've got a vaccine for that, vaccine for that. They just invent diseases like attention deficit disorder so that they can give pills to young kids to change their bloody mind, you know.
Stop acting like a child.
Yeah. So it's it's all connected. All the ways that our children are being drugged. The education system is simply there to program children to be good slaves on the other end, and that is becoming more and more blatant. And the idea is for the education system, and my goodness are we seeing this now, the school to be the parent, the state to be the parent. More and more parental rights are being taken away, and more rules and powers are being given to schools, not only over children when they're at school, which is most of the time, these prisons they call schools, these places of captivity, but actually more and more it's impacting on the time they're not at school. And so when you look at world events, you are looking at this agenda unfolding. Now, don't start me. Climate change. Climate change is one of the most monumental, blatant lies. You remember when temperature started to go up because of the sun cycle, you notice that? They never mention the sun when they're talking about temperatures. Do you think the sun might have an effect on temperature? What do you think? Oh, I don't know. Well, I've never thought about that one. No, my computer program tells me it's so-and-so, it's CO2. Right, yeah, so rubbish in, rubbish out, computer programs, you get that?
Yeah.
The idea of the sun is not fundamental to the temperature is insane. Of course it is. Anyway, what they've done is when the temperatures were going up, oh, it's global warming. And then there's Al Gore. He's wheeled out to be the front man. He's got a carbon footprint the size of Godzilla. He has, and it starts.
Well, he would, wouldn't he, with limousines and planes and everything else. Yeah.
And anyway, he comes out as the front man, and global warming. And then suddenly the temperatures weren't playing ball. They stopped, and they started to go down a bit. And now, they've held steady since 1997. We're in 2013. Global warming. So what did they do? They changed it to climate change. Well, global warming won't stand up because climate change, good one. And what they're doing is they're justifying, this is where the green movement has been caught on the line, hook, line and bloody sinker, buying this nonsense for various reasons. Because the idea is to use the lie of climate change and saving the planet to transform human society, to deindustrialize human society and to transform it. And if you see the maps, they're in my books, you can get them on the internet, of America under something called Agenda 21, which is a global thing. Most people will never have heard of it.
No, they won't.
But you start looking,
there, yeah.
It's everywhere. You know, I live on a little island called the Isle of Wight, right? It's part of Agenda 21, as all these other communities are around the world. Agenda 21, it's basically the Orwellian state. One of the things about Agenda 21, which it calls for, is, first of all, it's part of this whole population cult. It's to move people off the land into very, very densely populated high-rise accommodation with incredibly small living space. They're already, Mayor Bloomberg announced 165,000 units in New York when he was mayor, which absolutely are straight out of Agenda 21, because they're so tiny, it's almost
laughable.
They do
it in Japan, don't they?
Yeah, but
already.
Yeah, but they're bringing it all around the world, this Agenda 21. And therefore, if you want to get people into densely populated regions of what they call basically human settlement zones in great Orwellian fashion, you've got to get them off the land. You've got to get them away from the land. So in America, for instance, the Environmental Protection Agency, which is actually a tyranny, they go around with guns and looking like the military. They are introducing more and more laws to make it impossible for small farmers and family farmers and privately owned farmers to survive. It's happening in this country. Just as small business is being constantly targeted with red tape and bureaucracy to make it and taxation to make it impossible for them to survive, because the idea is all the corporations run all that stuff. There's no small business in the Hunger Games society they want. And so the family farms, which were the bedrock of America at one time, they're being forced off the land where? Into the cities, and the corporations are taking over the land. Also, fracking. What's fracking doing? It's making it impossible to live in many parts of the world, of the land, if you like, the countryside, the farming land and stuff like that, because you need water. And what they're doing is, through fracking, is that they are polluting the water supply with something like 600 chemicals which go into the water for the fracking process to happen. And it's never usable again because of all the chemicals, and then that chemically infested water gets into the drinking water supplies, and suddenly you can't live in that area anymore. They're forcing people off the land. There's so many ways that they're doing this around the world, which I go into in the books. But that is like an overview of where the agenda's taken us, the structure that allows it, the techniques of mass manipulation to take us there, and putting into context of things happening in the world which clearly are part of that pattern. And we'll pick up on that as we go through the weeks.
It's really fascinating stuff, David. Thanks for that. That's brilliant. That's it for now. We'll be back next week with more dot connecting with David Icke. Thanks for your company. See you then.